Hello and welcome. This is Chapter 3 review, and when we do a review video, we just take notes. So try to find a piece of graph paper, even if it's on the back of one I'd handed back, or print a piece of graph paper off the internet, or just use a piece of notebook paper and try your best. Okay, now there will be two videos, and actually I had to totally retape this because someone found a mistake. So anyway, if you watched it before, this is a new video. Make sure you put your name, the date, and so if you're wondering what this is due, it's either due Monday, October 1st, or if you have me on Tuesday, it would be due Tuesday, October 2nd, and please put your period. Now let's get into it. We're gonna do three shapes. So the first shape I'd like to do is I'd like you to go somewhere close to the edge, but not too close, and make a dot. Okay, and we're gonna call that C. All right, now using my graph paper, I'm gonna walk to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now I definitely wanna double check that, so I'm just gonna double check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. Now I'd like to call that A. Now from A, I'm gonna go to point B, and I'd like you to draw it 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 up from A. And of course, I'm gonna double check that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, perfect. So I've drawn what looks like a triangle, a right triangle specifically, that's triangle ABC. And the dimensions are 7 by 4. Now, very important, my first question is, can I find the perimeter? So I'm going to try to keep my work here. I'm going to draw a line. Didn't do that on my last video. I'm going to try to keep all my work here for perimeter, right here. So the perimeter of a three-sided shape would be add up the three numbers. Beautiful. I got three numbers. And it looks like the bottom is 7, the side is 4, and this side, I can't just count counting the blocks. I need to make an error and show my work, which this strategy is using Pythagorean Theorem. So this distance, if I got in my car and drove from C to B. So if I got in my car and drove from C to B, I'd go 4 up, 1, 2, 3, 4, so 4 up, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 over. And interestingly enough, in this shape, those are those same two numbers. I could have also driven this way, 7 over, 4 up, 7 over, 4 up. Square the two and add it. So now I've got to show my work. So make sure you show your work in working out these problems. So when I do my perimeter here, I have the square root of 4 squared plus 7 squared, which would be the square root of 16 plus 49, which would be the square root of 65. Let me just double check that. So 5 carry the 1. Yep, the square root of 65. So that's what gets put right there. Is this distance is the square root of 65. Beautiful. Now, if that was my final answer, I could combine these and I'd get 11 plus the square root of 65 inches, and I'd just put that as my final answer. But we've been learning how to round this square roots to different place settings. So I'm going to round this one. I'm going to imagine that the problem was given to me and that was the picture drawn, and I'm rounding to the nearest tenth. So actually it's easier for me to put it in the calculator, the square root first, and then figure out what this is and add the 11. So in my calculator, I'm going to put in, what is the square root of 65? So the square root of 65 is 8.0623. I'll just round up to the 23. And then I keep it in my calculator here. That's the square root of 65. And then I just want to go ahead and add 11. Enter. And there's my answer. So when I add 11, I'm going to round what's in my calculator to the nearest tenth. So that's 19.1, and I'm going to call that inches and box out my answer. Now because the decimal It's right there. Because this 6 is big 5 or more, the 0 rounds up to a 1. Beautiful. Now we're going to try the next shape. The next shape you should practice is a parallelogram. Well, that one I messed up a little bit, so I'm going to try a little harder this time. I'm going to call this point D. And I'm going to go down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 2, and make a point, G. So let's double check that. I went down 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 2, and I called that G. Now, I'd like my parallelogram to be 9 wide. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Beautiful. So I'm going to call that E and F. So imagine your paper has a parallelogram, D, E, F, G. And that parallelogram is 9. We'll double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Looks good. And to get from G to D, I went over 2, up 5. And that's really the slope. It looks like I fell 5, ran 2. Same thing here. Fall 5, run 2. So these would be parallel. That should make sense. Now to write out the dimensions, we know this is 9. And we know that's 9 because we counted it off. But again, imagine this shape was already on your paper and you'd counted it off for them. Now, in order to find the perimeter of this shape, perimeter means to walk around the outside of something. And so that's what we did here. We went 7 and 4 and then the square root of 65. 7 and 4 and the square root of 65. So this problem is similar. For the perimeter, I need to go 9 and a weird number, and 9 and a weird number. I got 4 numbers because this thing has 4 sides. So this would be 9, and that would be 9. So 2 of these are going to be a regular number, and we know these numbers are going to be different. We need our arrow. We need the arrow. Okay, because we can't count because they're not lined up vertically or horizontally. So I think we already remember doing this. We went over 2, up 5, so I'll do over 2, up 5. So that's 2 squared plus 5 squared, and then the square root. Same thing over here. Up 5 over 2. So if I went up 5 over 2, these look like they're going to give us the same answer, and they should, because they look the same length. Opposite sides of a parallelogram are congruent. So let's just work out the numbers. 5 squared is 25, 4 squared is 4, 2 squared is 4, and that's the square root of 29. The same would hold true on this side. 4 is 2 squared, 5 squared is 25, square root of 29. This is where I messed up on the old video, so please apologize, and that's why I'm fixing it. Okay, so this is where I get this information here. And I'll just make it final in black pen. Beautiful. So now, if I rewrite my perimeter is, I could rewrite this, I have 2 square roots of 29, the left and the right, and 9 and 9 makes 18. This could be my final answer, but we're practicing rounding. So I want to practice rounding to the nearest hundredth place. So if I do, again, it's really about typing in the calculator. I want to start with figuring out what is the square root of 29. Okay, so in my calculator, I put 29 and hit the square root. And so the square root of 29 is 5.385, and the number keeps going. So that actually makes sense. This looks like 5, but it's a little longer than 5. Now, so that's what that number is. 2 times 5.385 plus another 18. So I'm going to keep it in my calculator. I want to round at the very end. So there's my answer right there. That's the square root of 29. And I want to do times 2, enter. And then plus 18, enter. Beautiful. So I get my final answer, but I want to round to the nearest hundredths place. So when I look at my calculator, I get 28.77. The 0 does not require me to round up the 7, so the 7 stays the same. Awesome. Inches. Now, last one, we need to make sure we know how to do a trapezoid. So let's do it. Our trapezoid, I'd like to call HIJK. So let's make a dot, H, and I want to go down 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and over 2. I'll say that again. To make my trapezoid, I want to go down 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and over 2. All right, the top here I want to be 5, so just double check. So I went over 5 and made an I, and I want the bottom to be 10. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Perfect. J. So here's my trapezoid. Now notice something a little different in this problem. This is 10, and you might want to double check to make sure yours is 10, but imagine this was printed on your paper. The bottom's 10, and when I look at this, I see that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 over 2. So this distance would be 6 squared plus 2 squared. Here, this one turns out slightly different. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. So this wing or leg is a little longer. So I did 6 squared plus 3 squared and take the square root. So let's finish out our math here. 36 and 9. So we get the square root of 45. This would be 36 and 4, or the square root of 40. So to add up the perimeter, which again is all the way around, we would have to do all 4 sides. So that's 10 and 5 and the square root of 40 and the square root of 45. Okay. Now, we could probably rewrite our answer, the square root of 40 plus the square root of 45 plus 15 inches. Call it a day. But we're practicing if the direction asked us to round. So let's imagine they asked us to round in the 1,000th place. We've got to type this in our calculator. So I'd like you to think about the square root of 40. We're not sure. It's actually easier to kind of work this backwards. So I'm going to take the square root of 45 and write that down, 6.708, 6.70820. Okay, and then I'm going to have to add another 15 to that because 10 and 5 are 15. Now in the calculator, I'm almost done. I'm going to take the square root of 40, leave it in my calculator, see it there in my calculator, and then add 6.70820, enter, plus 15, enter. And I get my final answer, 28.033. Awesome. So here when I ran to the 1,000th place, since that 7 is 5 or greater, the 2 rounds up to a 3. Thanks for joining us. Check out the next video to find the area.